All right, good morning, guys, or good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time you're watching this video. It's Vincent here again, and this video is going to be a crash course on SQL, which is or SQL as some people prefer to pronounce it, which is called Structured Query Language. So SQL, Structured Query Language. It's a crash course on databases too. So we're going to talk about what databases are. We're going to go in and create a database. We're going to look at some tools for managing databases, and then we're going to look at how we're going to use database in this application, the database in this application that we're creating. So when people say a database, what exactly do they mean? We see people throw it around a lot. So they'll say, oh, a company was hacked and X amount of records were stolen from their database, or someone would say, oh, our database is down. Some people even say they're database administrators or they're database developers and all of that. So what does it really mean? So when we build applications, we usually have to store data, and sometimes we need to store a lot of data, and that is what a database is good for. So at the end of the day, a database is just a collection of rows and columns, and these help us to organize data. Think about your master sheets in the school. So in a secondary school, the class teacher would typically have a record of all the students, and as these students write tests and exams, the class teacher would update this document with their scores. So they would have a sheet that has kind of, it's like Excel. I'm going to pull up Excel here so you can see what I'm talking about. And in some way, Excel itself, it's a kind of document. It's a kind of database. So I would say, so I want to hold records here, so I can say student name, and up here I can come and say student score, and then I would say student address. And then what can I do here? So I have columns and I have rows. Now these are columns. Student score is a column, student address, and student name. And then these are rows. So for each row, I can come and create a new student name here. Say Vincent. Let's say my score is 10 over 100. And let's say my address is Lagos, Nigeria. I just created a row in my database, and this is called a record, right? This entire row. So each entry in your database, each row entry in your database is called a record. This is Vincent's record. Everything here is about Vincent. So a record is a collection of related fields. So when they say, oh, get me Vincent record from the database, I want you to get me all the information on that row, because all of that information on one row refers to Vincent. Now I'm going to enter another name here and say Richard. Student score. I would say student score is 100 or 100 because Richard is way smarter than me. And student address, I would say, is Benin, Nigeria, right? And this is another record. This is Richard's record. Everything here is related to Richard. So a record is a collection of related fields. This is one field. This is another field. This is another field. So each single entry in the database, so to say, itself is a field. So this is the column is a collection of fields, because at the end of the day, these are not related. The only relationship between these is that they are all students' names. They don't belong to the person. So the column is a collection of fields, and then the row is a collection of records. A database is made of columns. A database table, sorry, is made of columns and rows, and then a database can contain several tables. So this is the table for students' name and score. I can go ahead and create another table here. This becomes sheet 2. So think of Excel as a database, and think of each of the sheets as tables in the database. So that said, let us actually go and download a database tool and actually use it. I was conflicted about what tool to use for a while because database engines can be pretty heavy, and I didn't want a situation where some people cannot run them, but I figured a way around that. Now, the first thing we need to download is the SQL Server Management Studio. It allows us kind of work with our databases, so we can't work with databases from Excel. So the first thing we need to download is the SQL Server Management Studio SSMS. I have a link to it here. So if you can see it, I hope this is bold enough for you to see. Docs.microsoft. I can put this in the description for the video when I publish the video. But this is the link. This is the page you see here. From here, click on download SQL Server Management Studio. I downloaded it already, so I'm not going to download it again. So after downloading it, here's my downloads folder, and then I have the setup for SSMS here. Double click on it to start the installation. Okay, yes, I want to run this program. Let it install to the default location, please. Don't change this. I'll say install. And we're just going to hold on a bit for it to completely install. Alright, great. So SSMS is installed. Go ahead and close this, and then I'm going to okay, let's leave Excel open for now. Now the next thing we need to, so SSMS allows us to view our database, and basically issue commands to our database. Now we need to install it an actual database. There's a lot of options for us when it comes to databases, and let's just look at some of them. So for database, you see we have Oracle, we have MySQL, we have Microsoft SQL Server, we have PostgreSQL, we have MongoDB. There's a lot of them. So for this course, we're going to be using SQL Server because SQL Server is the database that most .NET companies use. So .NET developers, we mostly use SQL Server, and I want us to use the exact tools you would encounter in your first job as a .NET developer, right? We're going to be using a very lightweight version of SQL Server called SQL Server Express LocalDB. It doesn't have all the full range of functionality that a full SQL Server installation has. But the beautiful thing is That really doesn't matter now. You don't need a license for this one, so it's perfect for learning and all of that. So once again, I have the link to that download here. I'm going to, if you cannot see this, I'm going to put it on the video description when I publish this video. So get this link, come to this website and download this one. SQL Server Express 2019. When you download it, I have it downloaded again. So this is it. Going to double click on it to start it. And there's basic, there's custom, and there's download media. Please click on download media. Click on download media. It says which package would you like to download. Click on LocalDB. So please install LocalDB and click download. LocalDB is just 53 MB. It's extremely lightweight. Your system is not going to lag. So if you don't have a lot of RAM or a lot of resource on your system, and it just works for this example, for this project rather. So click on LocalDB and click on download. It's going to download to 53 MBs. When it's done downloading, I downloaded it already, so I won't click on download. When it's done downloading, you come to your downloads folder, you'll see this folder here, and then you double click on it. And then it just says, hey, welcome to SQL Server LocalDB installation. And because I already installed it, I have this screen. Do I want to remove it or do I want to repair it? But for you, you just click next, 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 and you have it installed. That's for me. The next thing you want to do is open up PowerShell. So let's see. So open up Windows PowerShell and say SqlLocalDB info, just to verify that we have it. And because it's correctly installed for me, I have this output here. And then to actually start it, I'm going to say SqlLocalDB start. And I started this already, but I just started it again. So now I have something called a database engine running in the background. And most database engines don't have a UI, so it's not a graphical. It's not. They don't have a UI that you can interact with, and that is why we downloaded the SQL Server Management Studio. So we're going to use the SQL Server Management Studio to interact with our database. I'm going to search for SSMS, which is short for SQL Server Management Studio. I'll open it up. I will wait. We're just waiting for that program to open up. Since it's the first time I'm opening it, it might take a while to come up. Okay, here it is. It's still coming up. All right, so it's come up and it's asking us, hey, what do we want to connect to? Yes, we want to connect to a database engine, and now it's saying, okay, what is the name of the server you want to connect to? I'm going to pick the name of the server from here. Just give me a second. So the server name is usually an IP address, but because of the kind of server we're using here, our server name is actually this. Because we're using LocalDB, our server name is this. So we say our server name is LocalDB in brackets / MSSQLLocalDB. And when you start working in a company and you have to work with your database, they're going to give you the database name, and you're going to connect to it. So I'm just going to copy this. This is my database name, this LocalDB that is running on my system. and I'm just going to come back to SSMS. It's saying, oh, do I want to use SQL Server administration? Do I want to log in with a username and password? And if you have your database in the cloud instead of running on your system, you would typically use a username and password. But for us, we're going to say we want to use Windows authentication and then connect. And voila, connected to my database. On the left pane here, you see I have a few options here. I have databases and then system databases. I have some databases that were created automatically, that my system uses to manage itself, or that the database engine uses to manage itself. What we're going to do now is actually go ahead and create our own databases. So this is where it gets interesting. Sorry, that's my alarm. Now in the next few lines of SQL, we're actually going to create our databases. Now, how do we create a database? For Excel, I just typed, right? I just created a new sheet and all of that. But for when we start working with an actual database, we use a language called SQL, Structured Query Language. Now, SQL is very powerful, but it's not a programming language. It is a query language. So we use SQL to interact with the database. When we want to say, hey, database, give me all the records that contain the character V, we're using SQL. So SQL is a very powerful language for talking to databases, and that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm just going to click up here, say new query, and then what I'm going to do is type some SQL, right? SQL is not SQL. In my opinion, although you can learn SQL, it's not something I have ever actively gone out to say, okay, I want to learn as much SQL as I can, even though it's a query language, even though I need it. It's more a situation of, okay, I need to do this in SQL. How do I do it? What's the command? And then each time I need to do something in SQL, I go out and I learn the SQL syntax for exactly what I want to do. So the first thing I want to do is create a database that I'm going to work with. So the command for that in SQL is create database, and you give your database a name. I'm going to name my database StudentDB. So create database, and like C#, most SQL statements end with a semicolon. I'll say create database StudentDB, and then I'll say execute. I click on execute. You can also use F5. And then down here it says commands completed successfully. And then, but I don't see the database here, right? All I have to do is click on refresh, open the drop down, and now you see I have a database here called StudentDB. I have an actual database, ladies and gentlemen. We just created our first database in SQL. So if someone asks you, oh, what is SQL used for? You tell them SQL is called Structured Programming Language, and it is used for interacting with a database. You can create a database with it, you can get data out of a database with it, and all of that. That is what SQL is. It's important to know some SQL, as questions about it typically come up in interviews. The next thing I want to do is, currently my database has no tables, and I need the tables to actually put information in my database. So I'm going to come down here and I'll say use StudentDB, and you see I have some text completion now, because there's usually a lot of databases, because it's possible for me to create several more databases here. Each time I execute commands, I need to tell the database engine which of the databases I want this command to be executed in, right? So next thing, I want to create that table in the database. So I say use StudentDB create table, and you see this is very English-like, right? Create table, Or should we name this table? So we have a students DB, create table. Let's see, mathematics scores, right? So let's create a table called mathematics scores. And then we need to tell it, okay, what are the columns that are going to be in this table? So create table mathematics scores. I'm going to come down here, open and close brackets, put my semicolon here, and then the first column should be the student's name. So this table is going to hold a list of students and their scores in maths, right? So I'll say student's name and student name. Then I need to tell you the type of data that is going to be in that field. So is this place going to hold an integer? Is it going to hold a double? Is it going to hold the name? So things like that, right? And in this case, I want first of all, let's start from the ID. So I'll say student ID, and student ID should be an int. So this is most database tables need a unique identifier, and I'll just say student ID should be an int. Then I can now say first name. Instead of ID, student ID, I'm just going to use ID here. Then I'll say first name. First name should be a string. The way we say string in SQL is to say varchar. The different ways to say this, but we'll find we're just saying varchar here. What we're saying is, hey, this place is going to hold a string or a text. And then so we have first name, we have last name, and then let's say we have score. So let's say score is going to be an integer. Let's just use an integer for now. Okay, so what we can do is we can now go and execute this command, right? So from the beginning, again, use students DB because there can be a lot of databases in your database engine, and we want to tell it where to create this table. So we're saying create a table, but we're saying, hey, go and create this table in students DB, and the command is create table, the name of the table you want to create, and then the columns that should be in that table. So these columns you see here, the student's name, student score, student address, that's the same thing we're creating here. We're saying, hey, this table is going to have an ID column, which is going to hold integers. So 1, 2, 3. It's going to have a first name, last name to hold the name of the student. It's going to have a score to show what the person scored, what the student scored. We're going to go and say execute. And once again, we see commands completed successfully. If we now open this, we still don't have a table here because we have to refresh. Now, if I open this up and open students DB and open tables, this time I have dbo.mathematics scores. Awesome. I can right click here and say select top 1000 rows. And you see it says select top 1000. This is SQL, and this SSMS just executed this command on our table, and down here it's showing the result. It says query executed successfully. You see we have ID, we have first name, we have last name, and we have score. But remember that we just created this database. We haven't actually put anything in the database, right? So that's why you see that there's no output here. Now we're going to go and actually put some data in this database that we just created. And the way to do that is I'm still going to say use student DB, but this time instead of create table, I'm not trying to create a table now. I'm going to say insert into, then I need to provide the name of the table I want to insert into. Remember that the name of the table we created is mathematics insert into mathematics core. Oh, sorry, mathematics cores rather. Insert into mathematics cores. And then I need to tell it what to insert into here. So we know that the first field is ID, the ID field. We need to tell it, okay, what to insert into that. I'm going to say ID, comma. The second this is first name. Let's see. Let's see, give me a second here. I'm not sure why it won't find my student mathematics code table. I'm just going to ignore the underlinings right here. For now, I think SSMS is acting up. Insert into mathematics course. And then I need to tell it what columns I want to insert into. So I want to insert into the, so I know that my columns, from here, I know that my columns are ID, first name, last name, and score. So ID, first name, last name, and score. And then I need to tell it what values I want to put into these places. So I'll say values. Yep. So for the values, I want the first ID to be 1. I want the second value to be Vincent. So I need to wrap this in quotes because it's a string. I need to put this, and notice I'm using single quotes here. So the next one is going to be 1 now, and then my score was 10 if I remember correctly, and I don't need to wrap this in quotes. And let's see if this works. Okay, so it says command to ignore if you're getting this weird underlinings. There's no error in the statement. I don't know why SSMS is highlighting it, probably because I just installed and I haven't tuned it. But down here you can say it says 1 row affected, completion time, blah 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 blah. It just tells us when this happened, right? Now let's come back here and execute this command again. This is a command that got the information out of our database. Or instead of, we can just close this even and just right click here and say select top 1000 rows, and this time we see that we actually get some values back. We get Vincent, Warner. I'm going to, let's see if I can make this bigger. Oh no, not you. Okay, no, I actually can't make this bigger. So I hope you can see the results down here. It's kind of tiny, but you see I have first name, owner. Let's go back and clear this insert statement and insert more values. So I'll say insert into mathematics, mathematics course. And once again, we need to tell it, hey, what fields do we want to insert into? So the fields we want to insert into are the ID field, the first name field, the last name field, and lastly the score field. And I need to tell it what values I want to insert. And for values, I say the first is the ID. I want an ID of 2 because I already have 1. I would say I want the first name to be Richard, comma, I want the last name to be this, and I want to score of 100, right? And I can just say execute, and it tells me 1 row affected. If I come back here and I just execute this code again, now I have 2 records in my database. So I have Vincent, and this is really how to insert data. Now let's say I want to read this information for my database. I'm going to create a new query, and the way to pull out information from your database is to say select asterisk. This means select all the rows, select asterisk from mathematics scores. So basically just say select asterisk from mathematics scores, and I can go execute, and you see I have the record. So this really is SQL. Typically you won't be coming into SSMS to work with SQL like this, but imagine you're writing an application and someone navigates to a page that is showing all of your that's supposed to show all of the goods you have. Let's say it's an e-commerce application and someone goes to a page to show all the goods that you have. What you just simply, so behind the scenes, what's happening is your application issues a command to the database and says select asterisk from products, and then all those products is taken from the database. The database returns a list of those products to your application, and then your application displays those products on the page. So it might be images, it might be the names of the it might be the names of the product. You just process that data that the database sends back to you, and you process it. Now I can say SQL gets more advanced. Right now I'm just pulling out everything. So I can say select asterisk from mathematics scores, and then go where first name equals Vincent. So I'm not saying, hey, give me all the records that have a first name of Vincent, and I'm going to say execute, and then I have just one name returned to me, because at the end of the day there's only one person with the first name of Vincent. I'm going to clear this and say where last name equal to Warner. I'm going to execute, and now I have 2 records. And now when you think about you filtering, so maybe you go to a site and you want to buy a phone, and you want a phone that is between 10,000 naira and say 50,000 naira, and then when you do that sort, you kind of get an idea of what happens on the database layer. Now a command is issued to the database that say, hey, give us all the phones that the price is between 10,000 and 50,000 naira, and the database returns that information. So SQL is very, very powerful. This does not begin to scratch the surface of what SQL does. We can update a record in SQL. So let's do an example of an update statement. So what I mean by update is, so an existing record, we can go in and change information. Let's say I decided to work better in school and actually improve my grade, and I don't want to be scoring 10 at maths anymore. Let's say I actually went and did some work at myself, and now my score has changed. The way to update it is to say updates, then I tell it the table I want to update. Updates mathematics course, and then I tell it the column I want to change, and then I'll say set the column name. What column do I want to change? I want to change the score. Set score equals, let's say I've done some work and now I am scoring 50 in math. Set score equals 50, where now I need to tell it, okay, which records do I want to change? Right now I'm saying, hey, go into mathematics score and set score equals to 50, but for which record? If I don't specify which record I want to update this for, let's look at what's going to happen. I'm going to execute this, and then I'm going to come and say select asterisk from mathematics course. I'm just going to, when I highlight this and click execute, it's going to execute only this line. So now we see that the both scores are 50, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted to update only Vincent. So I need to tell it which record. So I can say where ID equals 1. Now we know that Vincent's ID is 1. So let's set my score to 40. So I'm saying update mathematics score, set score equals 40, where ID is 1. And then I go and I say execute. Now when I run this again, we see that Vincent's score is 40 and Richard now has 50. Now let's make Richard's score 100. And this time, because of updating Richard's score, we say where ID equals 2. And then I'm going to say execute. We can as well say where name equals Richard here too, but imagine there are different people with Richard as the first name, then we're updating all of them. So it's just better to use the ID because the ID is usually unique for each user. So typically in your database, you don't want multiple rows having the same ID because you want a unique key that you can use to identify each record. Great. So that's our crash course on SQL. We just looked at how to create a database, how to update a record, how to insert a record, and all of that. Now let's look at how to delete a record. So to delete a record, I'm just going to create one more record here. Let's see, do I still have my create command? Okay, great, I still have my create command. So I'm going to say I'm creating for John Doe. Let's create a user to throw away. So we're creating a user for John Doe. We're giving it an ID of 3, and let's give it a score of 100. And I'm going to say execute, and it says 1 row affected, so that worked. Now if I come in here and I say select asterisk from mathematics again, we see now we have 3 users. Now we want to delete the third user, so we'll say delete. The statement is delete from, I give it the table name I want to delete from, mathematics scores. If I run this command, everything in the database is going to be deleted, and we don't want to ever make that mistake. If you run this command like this, every record in your, now imagine you having an e-commerce application with thousands and thousands of orders and transactions, and you just run this delete from command. It's going to delete all of the records in that table. So make sure you add the where clause. You tell it which one to delete. So delete mathematics scores, delete from mathematics scores where ID equals, remember we want to delete John Doe's record, so I say where ID equals to 3 and execute. Now if I run this, I see that John Doe is gone. We've deleted that record. So this is a really short crash course on SQL. These are the basics of SQL. You will continue to build on your SQL knowledge from here. But the truth is, SQL is good for when you actually need to go into your database and do stuff. And there's a lot of scenarios where you need to use database, but we are actually not going to be writing SQL in our application. We're going to be using something called Entity Framework, which allows us to write C#. It allows us to query our database using C# code, and behind the scenes, the C# code that we have written gets converted to SQL. But still, it is important that you know exactly what is going on under the hood. So we're going to be writing C#, and then the C# compiler is going to be changing, or the entity framework tools is going to be changing the C# that we're writing to interact with our database to SQL and sending those SQL commands to our database. But it is very important that you understand what is happening under the hood, and there are times where you actually need to go in and open your database and run those commands to get stuff done, because it's simply faster. So thanks for watching this video. If you have any challenges, please let me know. Thank you.